Welcome back to The Price of Business. I'm your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. And London calling. I wonder, probably should have had "It's the End of the World as We Know It."
we can do that going out.
Going out, yeah, because of course that's the story that we're getting when we look at the news and the wild volatility on Wall Street and fear and loathing and the weeping and gnashing of teeth.
That's right.
Is there any other kind of biblical things that
the rending of flesh, or at least of clothing?
Yes, and tearing of sackcloth. And,
absolutely.
Yeah,
pulling your hair out.
Yeah. I'm not sure if that's in the Bible. But anyway, they probably did some of that.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
So, and of course, it's interesting to hear it's all because of China. China has this problem. China has that problem. And the reality is that we live in an interdependent, economy. We live in a global economy. What happens somewhere else affects everywhere else. If it's above a certain size, it is the second largest economy in the world. But I keep hearing from these morons on Wall Street that it's a China problem. Thank God it's not our problem. As if our problems don't exist. We have such huge systemic problems in this country. $18 trillion national debt. Our debt is now bigger than our GDP. When that happens, economies flatline. Just look at Japan, which is now the third largest economy in the world. Used to be the second. It stopped being the second shortly after its GDP equaled its debt equaled its GDP.
Right.
We have 90 million people who are not considered unemployed, but are within employment age and employment health condition. But they simply have given up hope looking for a job. 90 million people who are being supported by the rest of us. And I'm telling you, buddy, it's a bizarre world that we live in. And, the emperor's new clothes is nudity. And we kind of look at our world through a similar delusional prism that the authorities know what's going on, even though we ain't seeing nothing.
Right. Well, I mean, it's weird to me that they would act as if China is kind of in a vacuum. This is a global economy. We buy a whole lot of products from China. We're probably their number one trade partner, right?
Right.
So if their economy is having a hard time, that's absolutely going to affect ours. By the way, they bought up a lot of our debt.
Thank you very much.
Japan actually owns more of our debt than China. But between the two of them, and both their economies are not doing well, yes, it's going to have an effect on us. And by the way, you're right. Our economy is not doing very well. I believe we're under 2% growth.
Yeah.
But as you said, the GDP being met or exceeded by the debt, hello, $18 trillion is an unthinkably large number.
It is. It's
and we just keep kicking it down the road for the future generations, which, by the way, is immoral.
Yeah, and you got to wonder how much of the speculation that goes on in China is speculating over our ability to buy their product.
Excuse me. Yes, absolutely. They've got to be afraid of the state of their largest trading partner, us. U.S. Yeah. So there's definitely a problem there, and I'm hearing a lot of talking heads. Of course, we had that huge drop. Over 1,000 points in the morning on Monday. And then it bounced back up amazingly. Tuesday, hey, we're everything's fine. There's no that's schizophrenic.
Yep.
And that is not based in reality. When you have knee-jerk reactions like that are taking it, what was it, 8% or 6% market loss across the entire market? Or at least the Dow, and Apple lost 26% of its worth, and then rebounded back up. But now, if you're looking to day trade, you could have made a ton of money. You could have leveraged yourself in with a good amount of cash or a good amount of buy-in and sold, buy it at low and then sold high on that day. I wouldn't recommend that. That's really tough
highly
to do.
Speculative in a very short time frame, and man, that can bite you really quickly.
But a lot of people probably made money.
Sure.
And
this is an important point. People make money no matter what the economy is.
That's right.
That's right. The mega wealthy of the industrial era in the United States really became wealthy after the stock market crash of 1929.
Yeah.
And the buy-ups that they did. And it's
and
incredible.
that's what I heard yesterday, Kevin, or the day before yesterday, and yesterday. They were talking about Apple. The people who didn't, I wish I knew the term, like basically the bad people who were involved who didn't really, they couldn't afford it. They had it, but they really couldn't afford it.
Right.
They sold when Apple...
not margins, people who...
Well, when Apple was dropping, right, they said those who really couldn't afford it got out. Right. And it was bought out by those who could. And
right,
so
on
it was
sell.
It was a deleveraging and then a, re-leveraging. So I found that
People
fascinating.
got richer yesterday, not poorer.
Well, I found that fascinating that they said that those who really shouldn't have had it, like you can't afford, like a mortgage on the house that you can't afford.
Yeah, and I bet he said it like this, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean,
for those who really couldn't afford it.
Yeah, and then there was some guy on like CNBC or MSNBC when all the Apple stocks were dropping. The guy's like, I got to make some phone calls. And people were pointing out, wait a second, you're making. Who are you calling?
Ghostbusters.
Who are you calling? Because are you calling somebody at Apple and getting insider information that probably shouldn't be shared? And so that started a whole speculation. It was a very interesting day on Monday.
Yeah, it was. No question about it. By the way, something I found very interesting is that gold dropped on Monday by over 16.
It dropped?
Yeah, it did.
Originally, they were saying that it was going to be good for gold. But
yeah, of course. That's why I'm finding it interesting. It goes back to what you said earlier about the schizophrenic nature
of this.
It is schizophrenic. There's no congruency here.
You'll
have
disconnect.
Both gold and stocks going up at the same time. That never happens. There's an inverse linkage between the two historically. And now this week you've got wild negative volatility and it going down too.
Oil prices too.
Yeah, now oil is part of the reason why all this pandemonium is taking place.
Sure.
And that goes back to, a cut in potential demand when it comes to China.
Well, and China is also a huge producer of oil. I mean, they've got, state-owned oil development companies, and so they're big into oil and natural gas, and Russia as well. And then Russia and China are obviously very close partners. So, yeah, we are... it's a symbiotic relationship. It's also a what's that term that psychologists use when people are codependent?
Codependent.
We're very codependent. A global economy is a codependent economy.
It really is.
So what happens in China is going to have an effect. I'm really surprised that it bounced back the next day, and I'm wondering if maybe we're going to start seeing a trickling down over the next few months, because someone's got to sober up.
Somebody. And it's long overdue. And I'm talking years overdue.
Right. We've been propped up by the Fed.
Yeah.
The market
every month for how many years? $50 billion of new money pumped into the money supply, essentially 0% interest rates, $1.5 trillion pumped into the money supply at one time at one point.
Right.
I mean, I'm sorry, 150 billion rather at one time. I mean, this is crazy stuff.
Well, think about this. We heard about during the 2008 drop, depression almost, that it was because of the real estate bubble had burst and it was Bush's fault and all that. And we can't blame this on Bush, okay? We had that huge drop, and now it basically, this whole recovery has been a lie in large part. It's been
smoke and mirrors.
Well, I mean, they spent how much on the stimulus bill? $1.5 trillion?
Yes,
on the stimulus
total
package, on the omnibus or whatever it was, and then they like you said, they've been putting money into the Fed or money into the Wall Street markets, and it's propping it up, sure. And so now, and that's what I was going to say. During the Bush years, he claimed that more people owned homes than at any time in American history. Well, you see where that went.
Many of whom obviously had no business owning homes.
So now we're in a situation where. A lot of people in the market's at the highest point ever. Okay, but it's artificial.
Yeah.
And so it is going to drop. And we are going to have a correction. And it's going to be painful. And it may not all be like Monday, where it's 1,000 points down and it'll stay like that. But I think we're going to see even more volatility in the months to come. So buckle up, everybody.
buckle up, and this would be a great time to buy that gold and silver while they think it's not. I mean, I'm telling you right now, and this is a really good competitive price. I would look into that.
As long as you don't think you're actually going to make money on the deal.
No, it's not for that purpose. It's insurance.
Right.
It's to shore up the value of your money. All right, when we come back, much more for you. Do want to remind you, best content here shows up over there at usdatareview.com, and this is The Price of Business.